Part 1. The galaxy had seen many battles, but none as terrifying as the arrival of the Krylos. They were an alien race that spread across the stars like a shadow, consuming everything in their path. Their ships were massive, dark, and cold, gliding silently through space with an air of unstoppable power. At the head of this armada stood Vorthak, a towering figure whose very presence seemed to radiate cruelty. He believed in domination, pure and simple. To him, survival meant ruling over others, crushing any resistance without mercy. For centuries, planets had fallen under the Krylos' control, their people enslaved or wiped out entirely. The Krylos didn't care about negotiations or alliances. They only cared about power. And now, after conquering countless worlds, they turned their attention toward Earth, a small blue planet nestled in a quiet corner of the Milky Way. To them, it was just another target, a primitive world unworthy of respect. But what they didn't know was that Earth would become their greatest challenge yet. On Earth, life went on as usual. People woke up, went to work, spent time with family, and enjoyed the little things. No one suspected that danger loomed far, beyond the clouds. That is, until strange signals began interfering with global communications. Satellites malfunctioned, radio waves crackled with static, and even cell phones started behaving erratically. Scientists around the world scrambled to understand what was happening. Was it solar flares? A computer glitch? Or something more sinister? In New York City, Alex Carter sat at his desk inside NASA's headquarters. Alex was a young astrophysicist, with a sharp mind and a curious nature. His eyes scanned rows of data displayed on multiple screens, searching for patterns or anomalies. Something felt off. Over the past few days, he'd noticed unusual readings coming from deep space. Bright flashes of energy appeared where there should have been nothing but empty void. It wasn't natural. It couldn't be. Alex decided to bring his findings to Emma Lewis, a pragmatic aerospace engineer who worked closely with him. Emma had a no-nonsense attitude and a knack for solving problems quickly. She listened intently as Alex explained his observations, her brow furrowing with concern. Together, they pored over the data, running simulations and cross-referencing information from other observatories. What they discovered sent chills down their spines. A fleet of unknown origin was heading straight for Earth. At first, they hesitated to share their conclusion. Who would believe them? Aliens attacking Earth sounded like something out of a movie, not real life. But the evidence was undeniable. The signals weren't random. They formed a pattern, a trail leading directly to Earth's solar system. Whatever these beings were, they weren't here to make friends. Word eventually reached government officials, sparking panic behind closed doors. Emergency meetings were held, and plans were drawn up in secret. Meanwhile, ordinary citizens remained, oblivious, going about their daily routines, unaware of the storm approaching. Some noticed oddities. The sky seemed darker than usual, or distant stars flickered strangely, but most dismissed it as imagination. As the days passed, Alex and Emma worked tirelessly to prepare for the worst. They knew humanity wouldn't stand a chance against such advanced enemies unless drastic measures were taken. With limited resources and time running out, they focused on adapting existing technology into defensive tools. Missiles were retrofitted with experimental payloads, satellites repurposed as early warning systems, and AI algorithms tweaked to predict enemy movements. Despite the grim situation, Alex refused to give up hope. "We've faced challenges before," he told Emma during one late-night brainstorming session. "If we stick together, we can find a way to stop them." Emma nodded, though doubt lingered in her expression. "Let's just hope we're not too late," she replied softly. Far away in the vast expanse of space, the Krylos fleet drew closer. Their ships moved in perfect formation, each one bristling with weapons capable of obliterating entire cities. Vorthak stood aboard his flagship, watching as Earth grew larger on the viewscreen. To him, it was just another conquest, another victory waiting to happen. Little did he know, this tiny planet would prove harder to break than any other. Back on Earth, Rachel Bennett prepared for battle. A fighter pilot from Texas, Rachel had always dreamed of flying among the stars. Now her dream had become a nightmare. Called upon to defend her home, she trained relentlessly alongside fellow pilots, determined to protect the ones she loved. Though fear gnawed at the edges of her mind, she pushed it aside, focusing instead on the task ahead. As the Krylos fleet entered Earth's orbit, darkness fell across major cities. Massive ships blocked out the sun, casting eerie shadows over streets filled with terrified people. Panic erupted as news spread of the alien invasion. Governments struggled to maintain order while scrambling to implement emergency protocols. Then came the message. Vorthak's voice boomed across every communication channel, demanding surrender. "You are weak," he declared. "Resistance is futile. Submit or face annihilation." But Earth refused to bow. Instead of cowering, humanity rallied. Under Alex and Emma's guidance, the Global Defense Initiative launched its first counterattack. EMP missiles disguised as diplomatic probes struck several smaller Krylos vessels, disabling them instantly. Cheers erupted in command centers as the initial success boosted morale. For the first time, humanity dared to believe it might actually stand a chance. Yet, the war was far from over. The Krylos regrouped quickly, retaliating with devastating force. Cities burned, lives were lost, and the skies turned red with fire. Still, Alex, Emma, Rachel, and countless others refused to back down. United by a shared determination to survive, they vowed to fight until their last breath. And so the stage was set for a conflict unlike any other, a battle between a merciless, alien empire and a resilient human race fighting for its very existence. Part 2. The news of the alien threat spread like wildfire, igniting both fear and determination across the globe. Governments, once divided by borders and politics, realized they had no choice but to unite if humanity was to survive. In record time, leaders from every nation came together to form the Global Defense Initiative, GDI, a coalition dedicated to defending Earth against the Krylos invasion. It wasn't an easy process. Arguments broke out, egos clashed, and old rivalries threatened to derail progress. But the urgency of the situation forced everyone to put aside their differences. At the heart of GDI's efforts were Alex Carter and Emma Lewis. Their discovery of the Krylos fleet had been the catalyst for humanity's awakening, and now they were tasked with finding ways to level the playing field. The Krylos had advanced technology, superior firepower, and centuries of experience conquering other worlds. Earth, on the other hand, was woefully unprepared for interstellar warfare. But Alex and Emma believed that humanity's greatest strength lay in its ingenuity and adaptability. Working tirelessly in NASA's labs, Alex focused on analyzing data collected from the initial skirmish. When the EMP missiles struck the smaller Krylos ships, fragments of debris had been left behind. These pieces, though small, held valuable clues about the invaders' technology. Using high-powered microscopes and advanced scanning equipment, Alex examined the wreckage closely. What he found was fascinating. The Krylos relied heavily on crystalline energy cores to power their ships and weapons. These cores were incredibly efficient but also fragile. If damaged, they could destabilize entire systems. Emma took this information and ran with it. A practical thinker with a talent for engineering, she began designing countermeasures tailored specifically to exploit the Krylos' weakness. She worked alongside teams of scientists and engineers, brainstorming ideas and testing prototypes around the clock. One of her most promising inventions was a plasma-based weapon capable of emitting resonance frequencies that matched the vibrations of the Krylos energy cores. If successful, these weapons could shatter the cores from a distance, disabling enemy vessels without needing to engage them directly. While Alex and Emma tackled the technical side of things, another key figure emerged as humanity prepared for war: Rachel Bennett. A fearless fighter pilot from Texas, Rachel had spent years honing her skills in the air. Her sharp reflexes, quick thinking, and unwavering courage made her a natural leader. When the call went out for volunteers to join the newly formed Skyward Squadron, Rachel didn't hesitate to step forward. Within days, she was appointed as its commander. Rachel's first task was to train recruits who would form the backbone of Earth's aerial defense force. Many of these men and women had never flown a spacecraft before, let alone engaged in combat. But Rachel refused to let inexperience hold them back. "We don't have time to wait for perfect soldiers," she told her team during one of their early sessions. "What we do have is heart, and that's going to be our greatest weapon." Under Rachel's guidance, the squadron practiced relentless drills, simulating dogfights and defensive maneuvers against virtual Krylos fighters. Pilots learned how to work together, forming tight-knit formations that maximized their chances of survival. Rachel pushed them hard, knowing that hesitation or doubt could cost lives in real battles. At the same time, she made sure to boost morale, reminding everyone why they were fighting. Not just for themselves, but for the billions of people counting on them back home. As preparations continued, ordinary citizens also played a crucial role in humanity's resistance. Factories retooled their assembly lines to produce weapons and supplies instead of consumer goods. Engineers and technicians volunteered their expertise to help modify existing military equipment for space use. Even children contributed by organizing fundraisers and creating artwork to lift spirits. Across the planet, communities banded together, proving that humanity's strength came not from individual heroes, but from collective effort. Despite the growing sense of unity, challenges remained. Not everyone shared Rachel's optimism about Earth's chances. General Harold Monroe, a decorated veteran overseeing GDI operations, voiced his concerns openly. With decades of military experience under his belt, Monroe believed humanity's best chance lay in brute force rather than clever tactics. He argued that stealth and hit-and-run strategies were too risky, favoring all-out assaults designed to overwhelm the Krylos quickly. Alex and Emma disagreed strongly with Monroe's approach. They knew Earth couldn't match the Krylos in terms of sheer numbers or firepower. Instead, they advocated for a strategy based on exploiting weaknesses, striking where it hurt most, and forcing the invaders to adapt to unpredictable attacks. This clash of ideologies created tension within the GDI leadership, threatening to slow down decision-making at a critical time. But Rachel saw value in both perspectives. While she admired Alex and Emma's innovative thinking, she understood Monroe's desire to protect innocent lives by ending the war as swiftly as possible. Balancing these viewpoints became one of her toughest responsibilities as squadron leader. She often found herself mediating heated discussions between the two sides, trying to find common ground while keeping morale intact. Amidst the chaos, moments of hope began to emerge. News reports highlighted stories of bravery and resilience, inspiring others to keep pushing forward. In one instance, a group of farmers in Iowa used tractors and makeshift tools to build decoy structures that confused Krylos scouts. In another, a young girl in Japan sent handwritten letters to pilots stationed nearby, thanking them for their service and wishing them luck. These acts of kindness reminded everyone what they were fighting for, a future where humanity could live free from fear. As weeks passed, the Krylos grew increasingly aggressive. Reconnaissance missions revealed that their fleet was regrouping after the initial EMP strike, preparing for a larger-scale assault. Intelligence suggested that Vorthak, their ruthless leader, viewed Earth's defiance as an insult, a challenge to his authority that demanded swift retaliation. The pressure mounted on Alex, Emma, and Rachel to finalize their plans before the next wave of attacks arrived. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Rachel stood on the rooftop of the GDI headquarters, staring up at the stars. The sky was darker now, polluted by the shadow of the Krylos fleet looming overhead. For a moment, doubt crept into her mind. Could humanity really win this fight? Were they strong enough to stand against such overwhelming odds? Then she remembered something her father used to say when she was a child. Courage isn't about being fearless. It's about doing what needs to be done, even when you're scared. Taking a deep breath, Rachel squared her shoulders and turned back toward the building. There was still work to be done, and she wasn't about to let fear stop her. Inside, Alex and Emma were waiting, their faces illuminated by the glow of computer screens. Together, the three of them reviewed the latest updates, discussing strategies and refining their plans. Each contribution brought them one step closer to turning the tide of the war. Though the road ahead was fraught with danger, they refused to give up. Humanity had faced countless trials throughout history, and each time it had emerged stronger. The Krylos might have terrorized the cosmos, but Earth wasn't like the other planets they'd conquered. Here, they would face something entirely new, a united species willing to fight tooth and nail for its freedom. And as long as people like Alex, Emma, and Rachel stood firm, there was still hope for victory. Part 3. The day everyone had been dreading finally arrived. The Krylos fleet moved into position, their massive ships blotting out the sun over cities across the globe. People stared up at the sky in awe and terror as the invaders made their presence known. Vorthak's voice boomed through every communication channel on Earth, cold and menacing. "You are weak," he declared, his tone dripping with contempt. "Resistance is futile. Surrender now, or face annihilation." For a moment, it seemed like the entire world held its breath. Fear gripped millions of hearts, but it didn't last long. Humanity had already decided surrender wasn't an option. Instead, Earth responded with defiance, a message broadcast to the Krylos fleet that simply said, "We will fight." It was short, simple, and carried a weight far greater than words. The Krylos dismissed it as foolishness, unaware of what humanity had planned. Under Alex Carter and Emma Lewis's guidance, the Global Defense Initiative launched its first major offensive. Using data from the earlier skirmish, they devised a bold strategy to strike at the heart of the Krylos fleet. The EMP missiles that had disabled smaller ships before were upgraded and disguised as diplomatic probes, innocent-looking devices designed to slip past enemy defenses unnoticed. These probes would deliver a devastating electromagnetic pulse, targeting critical systems aboard the Krylos vessels. Rachel Bennett led the Skyward Squadron in escorting the probes to their destinations. Flying sleek, modified fighters equipped with experimental shielding, Rachel and her team navigated treacherous routes through asteroid fields and debris zones to avoid detection. The mission required precision timing. If the probes were discovered too soon, the entire operation would fail. As the squadron approached the edge of the Krylos blockade, tension crackled among the pilots. Rachel's voice came through the comms, steady and reassuring. "Stay sharp, everyone. We've trained for this. Trust your instincts and trust each other." Her calm demeanor helped ease some of the nerves, though everyone knew the stakes were impossibly high. The probes deployed, silently, drifting toward their targets like ghosts. For several agonizing minutes, it seemed as though the plan might work without a hitch, but then, alarms blared inside the Krylos ships. Their sensors had detected the probes just moments before impact. Chaos erupted as enemy fighters scrambled to intercept the incoming threat. Rachel barked orders to her squadron, leading them into a fierce dogfight to buy time for the probes to reach their marks. Laser fire streaked across the void of space, lighting up the darkness with bursts of red and blue. Rachel maneuvered her fighter with incredible skill, dodging blasts while returning fire with pinpoint accuracy. Around her, the rest of the squadron fought valiantly, their teamwork paying off as they managed to hold off waves of Krylos attackers. One by one, the probes reached their targets, detonating in brilliant flashes of energy. The effects were immediate and catastrophic for the Krylos. Several smaller ships went dark, their systems completely disabled. Larger vessels faltered, their once imposing presence reduced to helpless hulks adrift in space. Back on Earth, cheers erupted in command centers as news of the successful strike spread. For the first time, humanity had dealt a significant blow to the invaders. But victory came at a cost. 2 members of the Skyward Squadron hadn't returned, their ships destroyed during the intense battle. Rachel clenched her jaw as she led the surviving pilots back to base, grief weighing heavily on her shoulders. She knew losing teammates was inevitable in war, but it didn't make the pain any easier to bear. Meanwhile, Alex and Emma worked around the clock to analyze the aftermath of the attack. They studied telemetry data from the disabled Krylos ships, searching for new weaknesses to exploit. What they found confirmed their earlier suspicions. The crystalline energy cores powering the alien technology were incredibly fragile. Even minor damage could cause chain reactions that destabilized entire systems. Emma immediately set to work refining the plasma-based weapons she'd been developing. If they could scale up the resonance frequency technology, they might be able to create weapons capable of targeting those cores from a distance. It was a risky proposition, requiring precise calibration, but it offered humanity its best chance at turning the tide of the war. While Emma focused on weapon development, Alex turned his attention to debris recovered from the destroyed Krylos ships. He spent hours poring over fragments of alien technology, piecing together how it functioned. His goal was to understand not just the physical components, but also the underlying principles behind the Krylos' advancements. If humanity could replicate even a fraction of their technology, it would give them a crucial edge in future battles. Word of the successful probe mission spread quickly, boosting morale across the planet. People celebrated the victory, however small, as proof that Earth could stand against the invaders. News outlets highlighted stories of bravery from the Skyward Squadron, turning Rachel and her pilots into symbols of hope. Children drew pictures of starships battling aliens, and communities rallied together to support the war effort. But amidst the celebrations, General Harold Monroe remained skeptical. To him, the probe mission was little more than a lucky break, a temporary setback for the Krylos rather than a decisive victory. He believed humanity's focus should remain on brute force, arguing that stealth tactics only delayed the inevitable. During a heated meeting with GDI leaders, Monroe pushed for authorization to launch a full-scale assault on the Krylos fleet. Alex and Emma strongly opposed the idea. "We're not ready for that kind of attack," Emma argued. "If we rush in blindly, we'll lose everything we've gained so far." Alex nodded in agreement, adding, "Our strength lies in hitting them where it hurts most, in their technology. We need to keep finding ways to outsmart them, not throw ourselves into a suicide mission." Rachel found herself caught in the middle of the debate. While she respected Monroe's military experience, she trusted Alex and Emma's insights. Their approach had already proven effective, and she believed sticking to it gave humanity its best chance at survival. After much deliberation, the GDI Council sided with Alex and Emma, agreeing to continue pursuing targeted strikes instead of all-out assaults. Despite the decision, tensions between Monroe and the scientists remained high. The general viewed their cautious strategies as weakness, while Alex and Emma saw his aggressive tactics as reckless. Rachel tried her best to mediate, reminding everyone that infighting would only weaken humanity's position. Still, the divide lingered, casting a shadow over the alliance. As preparations continued for the next phase of the war, humanity faced another challenge: adapting to life under constant threat. Cities fortified themselves, building shelters and stockpiling supplies in case of further attacks. Schools taught children emergency protocols alongside regular lessons, ensuring they knew what to do if the skies lit up with lasers again. Farmers planted extra crops, knowing food shortages could become a reality. Every aspect of life changed, shaped by the looming presence of the Krylos fleet. Yet, despite the hardships, there was a newfound sense of unity. Strangers helped one another, sharing resources and offering comfort in times of need. Artists painted murals depicting Earth's resilience. Musicians composed songs about courage and hope, and writers penned stories celebrating humanity's spirit. Even in the darkest moments, people found ways to inspire each other. Back at NASA headquarters, Alex and Emma shared a quiet moment of reflection. They sat side by side, staring at screens filled with data and schematics. Neither spoke for a while, content to simply absorb the enormity of what they were doing. Finally, Emma broke the silence. "Do you think we can really win this?" she asked softly. Alex hesitated before answering. "I don't know," he admitted. "But I do. Know one thing, we're not going down without a fight." Emma smiled faintly, nodding in agreement. Outside, the night sky glittered with stars, a reminder of the vast universe beyond Earth. Somewhere out there, the Krylos regrouped, plotting their next move. But here on this tiny blue planet, humanity stood firm, ready to face whatever came next. And so, The war raged on. Each victory, no matter how small, brought Earth closer to proving that even the smallest spark of resistance could ignite a fire strong enough to drive away the darkness. Part 4. The victory from the probe mission gave humanity a much-needed boost, but it was clear that the war was far from over. The Krylos fleet still loomed in Earth's orbit, its massive ships casting long shadows over cities and towns. Vorthak, enraged by the loss of several vessels, ordered his forces to regroup and prepare for retaliation. Humanity had proven itself smarter than he expected, but he refused to let such defiance go unpunished. The invaders began launching smaller raids on key locations around the globe, testing Earth's defenses and gathering intelligence for a larger assault. Alex Carter and Emma Lewis knew they couldn't rely on one successful tactic to win the war. While the EMP probes had worked brilliantly, using them again would be risky. The Krylos were sure to adapt and strengthen their systems against similar attacks. Instead, Alex proposed a new strategy: guerrilla warfare. Rather than engaging the Krylos head-on, humanity would strike quickly and unpredictably, targeting supply lines, communication hubs, and energy carriers. By keeping the enemy off balance, they could weaken the fleet piece by piece before it recovered its strength. Rachel Bennett embraced the idea wholeheartedly. As leader of the Skyward Squadron, she understood the importance of flexibility and surprise in combat. Her pilots trained rigorously for hit-and-run missions, learning how to navigate narrow corridors between asteroids and slip past enemy patrols without being detected. Speed and precision became their top priorities. Every second counted when facing an enemy as powerful as the Krylos. The first major raid targeted a convoy of Krylos supply ships transporting vital resources to the main fleet. These ships were heavily guarded, but they followed predictable routes, making them vulnerable to ambush. Rachel led her squadron deep into space, flying silently until they reached the convoy's path. When the moment came, they struck with devastating speed, firing plasma-based weapons designed to disrupt the crystalline energy cores powering the alien vessels. One by one, the supply ships exploded in bursts of light, leaving behind clouds of debris. The success of the raid sent shockwaves through the Krylos ranks. Vorthak had never encountered an enemy capable of such precise and calculated attacks. His forces scrambled to adjust their tactics, rerouting convoys and increasing patrols along potential ambush points. But no matter what they did, the humans always seemed to stay one step ahead. Each raid crippled another part of the Krylos operation, forcing them to divert resources away from their planned invasion of Earth. Back on the ground, Emma collaborated closely with Liam Brooks, a brilliant hacker who had joined the Global Defense Initiative after proving his skills during the initial stages of the war. Liam specialized in cyber warfare, using his knowledge to infiltrate Krylos networks and sow chaos within their ranks. With access to fragments of alien technology recovered from destroyed ships, he reverse-engineered communication protocols and planted viruses that disrupted coordination between vessels. Liam's work paid off during one particularly daring mission. Rachel and her squadron attacked a heavily fortified Krylos outpost, responsible for relaying orders across the fleet. As the pilots engaged enemy fighters, Liam remotely hacked into the outpost's systems, disabling its shields and creating blind spots in its targeting arrays. This allowed the squadron to deliver a crippling blow to the facility, destroying it entirely and cutting off communication links across a large section of the fleet. The impact of these combined efforts began to show. Morale among the Krylos plummeted as their once unstoppable armada struggled to maintain cohesion. Ships drifted aimlessly due to damaged navigation systems, while commanders argued over how best to respond to the relentless human attacks. For the first time, cracks appeared in the invaders' seemingly impenetrable facade. Despite these victories, the cost of the war weighed heavily on everyone involved. Pilots returned from missions exhausted, their nerves frayed from constant danger. Engineers worked non-stop to repair damaged fighters and develop new technologies, often going days without sleep. Civilians faced shortages of food and supplies as resources were funneled toward the war effort. And yet, despite the hardships, there was a growing sense of pride and determination. Humanity had found a way to fight back, not through sheer power but through ingenuity and teamwork. General Harold Monroe, however, remained unconvinced. He viewed the hit-and-run tactics as cowardly, arguing that humanity should focus on building up its forces for a decisive battle. "We can't keep running forever," he said during a tense meeting with GDI leaders. "Sooner or later, we'll have to face them head-on." Alex and Emma countered his arguments passionately. "Every raid weakens them," Emma explained. "If we keep hitting their weak points, we'll wear them down until they're too weak to fight back." Alex added, "A direct assault right now would be suicide. We need to bide our time and make every shot count." Rachel backed them up, sharing stories from the front lines about how effective the guerrilla tactics had been. She described the confusion and frustration spreading through the Krylos ranks, painting a picture of an enemy slowly losing control. Her testimony swayed many doubters, though Monroe remained stubbornly opposed to the strategy. As the debate raged on, the Krylos launched a desperate counteroffensive. A group of their fastest ships descended upon a coastal city, unleashing devastating beams of energy that reduced entire neighborhoods to rubble. The attack was meant to send a message: surrender or face destruction. But instead of instilling fear, it only strengthened humanity's resolve. Volunteers flooded recruitment centers, eager to join the fight. Factories doubled production rates, churning out weapons and supplies at unprecedented speeds. In response, Rachel led her squadron on a daring mission to retaliate. They ambushed the attackers, luring them into a trap near a dense asteroid field. Using the terrain to their advantage, the pilots darted between rocks, firing plasma torpedoes that shattered the crystalline cores of the Krylos ships. The ambush ended with the complete annihilation of the attacking force, sending a clear message to the invaders: Earth wouldn't back down. News of the victory spread quickly, lifting spirits across the planet. People celebrated not just the triumph, but the proof that humanity could stand toe-to-toe with the Krylos, even if it meant taking risks. Rachel became a symbol of hope, her name spoken with reverence in households around the world. Children dreamed of becoming pilots like her, while adults marveled at her bravery and leadership. But Rachel herself remained humble. She knew the war was far from won and that every celebration came at a cost. Too many lives had been lost already, and she carried the weight of those sacrifices with her every day. Still, she refused to let grief slow her down. There was still work to do, battles to fight, and a planet to protect. As the days turned into weeks, humanity continued to adapt and evolve. New weapons rolled off assembly lines, each one more advanced than the last. Scientists developed protective coatings for spacecraft, shielding them from Krylos lasers. Engineers created drones capable of repairing damaged ships mid-battle, giving pilots a fighting chance even in the heat of combat. Through it all, Alex, Emma, Rachel, and countless others pushed forward, driven by a shared belief that Earth deserved a future free from fear. They knew the road ahead would be long and difficult, but they also knew something else. The Krylos might have terrorized the cosmos, but humanity wasn't about to let them win, not without a fight. Part 5. As the war dragged on, tensions within the Global Defense Initiative, GDI, began to rise. General Harold Monroe's frustration with Alex Carter and Emma Lewis's cautious strategies reached a boiling point. He had always believed that humanity's only chance of survival lay in overwhelming force, an all-out assault that would crush the Krylos fleet once and for all. But the GDI Council continued to side with Alex and Emma, favoring their guerrilla tactics over Monroe's aggressive plans. Monroe couldn't stand by any longer. Convinced that the hit-and-run missions were wasting valuable time and resources, he decided to take matters into his own hands. Without consulting the council or informing Rachel Bennett and her squadron, Monroe authorized a reckless attack on a heavily fortified Krylos outpost deep in enemy territory. He assembled a fleet of Earth's largest remaining warships, loading them with every weapon available, and sent them into battle under the cover of darkness. At first, the mission seemed promising. The fleet managed to slip past the outer perimeter of the Krylos blockade undetected, thanks to Liam Brooks's hacking skills disabling some of the invaders' sensors. But as they approached the target, everything went wrong. Vorthak had anticipated such an attack and set a trap. Hidden turrets emerged from the surface of nearby asteroids, firing devastating beams of energy that tore through the human ships. Fighters swarmed the fleet like insects, overwhelming its defenses with sheer numbers. Rachel and her Skyward squadron were monitoring the situation from a distance when they received an urgent distress call. "We're under heavy fire," one of the pilots screamed over the comms. "They knew we were coming." Rachel's heart sank as she realized what had happened. She immediately contacted GDI headquarters demanding answers. When she learned about Monroe's unauthorized operation, anger surged through her veins. "He's thrown away hundreds of lives for nothing," she shouted at the screen, showing Alex and Emma's worried faces. This wasn't just reckless, it was betrayal. Despite the chaos, Rachel sprang into action. She ordered her squadron to rush to the aid of the beleaguered fleet, knowing full well that it might already be too late. Flying at maximum speed, they arrived just in time to see the last of the human ships explode in a fiery burst. Survivors floated helplessly in escape pods, surrounded by debris and enemy fighters. Rachel led her team in a desperate rescue effort, dodging laser fire while pulling stranded pilots to safety. The cost of Monroe's decision was catastrophic. Hundreds of soldiers had died, and Earth's already limited fleet had been severely weakened. Worse still, the failed mission gave the Krylos valuable intelligence about humanity's capabilities. Vorthak now knew exactly how far Earth was willing to stretch itself, and how fragile its defenses truly were. When news of the disaster reached the GDI Council, outrage erupted. Leaders demanded accountability, and Monroe found himself facing intense scrutiny. Rachel confronted him personally during a heated meeting, her voice shaking with fury. "You ignored orders, risked lives, and endangered the entire planet," she said, glaring at him across the table. "How can we trust you to lead us when you act without thinking?" Monroe tried to defend himself, claiming that his actions were necessary to show the Krylos humanity's strength. But no one was convinced. The evidence spoke for itself. His impulsive decision had achieved nothing but loss. Under mounting pressure, the council voted to sideline Monroe, stripping him of his command and placing Rachel in charge of all military operations. It was a daunting responsibility, but Rachel accepted it without hesitation. She knew the stakes were higher than ever, and Earth needed someone who could unite its forces rather than divide them. With Alex and Emma's support, she worked tirelessly to rebuild morale among the troops. Her first order of business was addressing the survivors of the failed mission. Many were traumatized, questioning whether they could continue fighting after such a devastating blow. Rachel visited each of them personally, speaking words of encouragement and reminding them why they had chosen to join the war effort. "We've lost good people," she told them during one heartfelt speech, "but we can honor their sacrifice by staying strong. They didn't give up, and neither will we." Her determination inspired others to keep pushing forward. Engineers worked around the clock to repair damaged ships, while scientists developed new technologies to replace those lost in the battle. Civilians rallied together, organizing supply drives and volunteering their skills to support the war effort. Slowly but surely, humanity began to recover from the blow dealt by Monroe's recklessness. Meanwhile, Alex and Emma focused on analyzing data from the failed mission. Though it had ended in disaster, it provided valuable insights into the Krylos defensive systems. By studying footage captured by drones during the attack, they identified patterns in the aliens' movements and uncovered potential vulnerabilities in their shield generators. This information allowed them to refine their weapons further, making them even more effective against the crystalline cores powering the Krylos technology. Liam Brooks also played a crucial role in turning the tide. Using fragments of code recovered from hacked Krylos networks, he created a program capable of infiltrating their communication systems on a deeper level. The program spread like a virus, disrupting orders and creating confusion among the invaders. For the first time, the Krylos struggled to coordinate their attacks, giving humanity precious breathing room. As Rachel took command, she implemented changes to ensure such a disaster wouldn't happen again. She established stricter protocols for mission approval, requiring input from both military leaders and scientific advisors before any major operation could proceed. She also emphasized teamwork above all else, reminding everyone that this was a fight not just for soldiers but for every person on Earth. Under her leadership, The Skyward Squadron became more disciplined and cohesive than ever. Pilots trained harder, honing their skills in simulated battles designed to mimic real-world conditions. New recruits joined the ranks, eager to prove themselves after hearing stories of Rachel's bravery. Together, they prepared for the next phase of the war, a series of coordinated strikes aimed at crippling the Krylos fleet once and for all. Despite the setbacks, there was a renewed sense of hope. People saw Rachel as a symbol of resilience, someone who could guide them through even the darkest times. Posters featuring her likeness appeared in cities around the world, accompanied by slogans like "Earth will rise" and "Together we stand." Artists painted murals depicting her leading her squadron into battle, while musicians composed songs celebrating her courage. But Rachel herself remained humble. She understood that victory wouldn't come from one person alone. It would take the combined efforts of millions to win this war. Every night, she stood on the rooftop of GDI headquarters, staring up at the stars. The Krylos fleet still loomed overhead, a constant reminder of the threat humanity faced. Yet as she looked out at the city below, alive with lights and determination, she felt a spark of hope. "We've been knocked down," she whispered to herself, "but we're not out yet." And so humanity pressed on. Each day brought new challenges but also new opportunities to grow stronger. The Krylos had terrorized countless worlds, leaving destruction in their wake. But Earth was different. Here they faced an enemy unlike any other, an enemy united by love for their home and an unshakable will to survive. Part 6. The time had come for humanity's most ambitious operation yet. Codenamed Operation Eclipse, it was a daring plan designed to cripple the Krylos fleet at its core, their flagship, the Oblivion. This massive vessel served as both the command center and the symbol of Vorthak's dominance. If Earth could destroy it, they would not only deal a crippling blow to the invaders but also shatter their morale. It was a risky mission, but Rachel Bennett and her team were ready to take the gamble. Alex Carter and Emma Lewis had spent weeks preparing for this moment. Using data from previous battles, they developed experimental plasma torpedoes armed with resonance frequencies specifically tuned to destabilize the crystalline energy cores inside Krylos ships. These torpedoes were humanity's best chance of penetrating the thick armor of the Oblivion and causing catastrophic damage. The challenge now was getting them close enough to strike. Rachel led a small elite squadron handpicked for the mission. Among them were Sarah Myers, a calm and steady pilot known for her precision, and Daniel Holt, a fearless rookie whose quick reflexes had saved his teammates more than once. Together they formed a tight-knit group, each member trusting the others with their lives. Their task was simple in theory but nearly impossible in practice. Escort the torpedoes through layers of enemy defenses and ensure they reached their target. As the squadron prepared for launch, tension filled the air. Everyone knew the odds were against them. The path to the Oblivion was heavily guarded by swarms of Krylos fighters and turrets mounted on nearby asteroids. Even reaching the flagship would require incredible skill and luck. But Rachel refused to let fear take hold. Standing before her team, she spoke with quiet confidence. "We've trained for this. We've fought harder battles than this. Today, we show the Krylos what happens when you mess with Earth." With that, the squadron launched into space, leaving behind the safety of Earth's atmosphere. Flying in formation, they approached the edge of the Krylos blockade, where Liam Brooks awaited them remotely. From his station back on Earth, Liam monitored their progress, using hacked Krylos systems to create temporary blind spots in enemy sensors. "I've got your backs," he assured them over the comms. "Just stay sharp." The first wave of Krylos fighters appeared almost immediately, streaking toward the squadron like arrows. Rachel gave the order to engage, her voice steady despite the chaos erupting around them. Plasma bolts lit up the darkness as pilots dodged and weaved, firing back with everything they had. Sarah took out 2 enemy ships with precise shots, while Daniel barrel-rolled to avoid a barrage of lasers. Each second felt like an eternity, but the squadron held its ground, pushing forward inch by inch. When the squadron finally reached the asteroid field surrounding the Oblivion, things got even tougher. Hidden turrets opened fire, forcing the pilots to navigate narrow gaps between rocks while under constant attack. Rachel led the way, her instincts guiding her through the maze-like terrain. Behind her, Sarah and Daniel followed closely, shielding the torpedo carriers with their own ships. Every explosion echoed like thunder, shaking the very fabric of space. Liam worked furiously to keep the Krylos distracted. He deployed decoy signals and jammed communications, creating confusion among the enemy ranks. For a brief moment, the squadron slipped past a cluster of turrets unnoticed thanks to Liam's efforts. "Nice work, Liam," Rachel said, her voice tinged with gratitude. "Keep it up." But the closer they got to the Oblivion, the fiercer the resistance became. Dozens of Krylos fighters swarmed them, intent on stopping the torpedoes at all costs. The squadron fought valiantly, but their numbers dwindled as ships were hit and forced to retreat. By the time they reached the final stretch, only Rachel, Sarah, and Daniel remained, along with the torpedo carriers. "Hold together," Rachel shouted, her voice cutting through the noise. They were so close, just a few hundred meters away, from the flagship's hull. Enemy fire rained down relentlessly, threatening to tear them apart. Then, just as it seemed all hope was lost, Liam pulled off one last miracle. He hacked into the targeting systems of nearby turrets, disabling them, long enough for the torpedoes to breach the outer defenses of the Oblivion. "We're clear," Liam yelled triumphantly. "Go, go, go!" Rachel didn't hesitate. With adrenaline coursing through her veins, she guided the remaining pilots toward the flagship's exposed energy core. The torpedoes launched simultaneously, racing toward their mark with deadly accuracy. For a split second there was silence, a breathless pause as everyone waited to see if the plan would succeed. Then, the world erupted in light. The torpedoes struck true, their resonance frequencies shattering the crystalline core deep within the Oblivion. A chain reaction followed, spreading outward like wildfire. Explosions tore through the ship's interior, ripping it apart piece by piece. The once mighty flagship collapsed in on itself, consumed by flames and debris. Back on Earth, cheers erupted in command centers as news of the victory spread. Alex and Emma hugged each other tightly, tears streaming down their faces. They had done it. They had struck a blow that would echo across the stars. Humanity had proven it could stand toe-to-toe with the Krylos and win. For Rachel and her team, however, there was no time to celebrate. As the wreckage of the Oblivion floated silently in space, the surviving Krylos forces regrouped, determined to avenge their fallen leader. Though Vorthak was presumed dead, his legacy lived on in the hearts of his soldiers who vowed to continue the fight. The war was far from over. Rachel led her battered squadron back to Earth, exhausted but alive. When they landed, crowds gathered to welcome them home, chanting their names and waving flags. Rachel stepped out of her fighter, her face smeared with soot and her uniform torn, but her spirit unbroken. She raised a fist in triumph, a silent promise to keep fighting until the Krylos were driven from Earth's skies forever. Yet amid the celebrations, Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Destroying. The Oblivion had been a monumental achievement, but it had also made the Krylos desperate. Humanity had shown it could hurt them, but now the invaders would strike back with everything they had left. The road ahead would be brutal, filled with sacrifices and heartbreak. But Rachel knew one thing for certain: humanity wouldn't give up. Not now. Not ever. As night fell over the planet, people looked up at the stars, their hearts filled with hope. The Krylos might have terrorized the cosmos, but Earth had proven it wasn't afraid to fight back. And as long as there were brave men and women willing to stand against the darkness, the light of humanity would never fade. Part 7. The destruction of the Oblivion sent shockwaves through the Krylos fleet, both literally and figuratively. Without their flagship to coordinate attacks, the invaders descended into chaos. Commanders argued over who should take charge, while ships drifted aimlessly, unsure of their next move. For a brief moment it seemed like the tide had turned decisively in humanity's favor. But the Krylos were not a species that accepted defeat easily. Even without Vorthak's leadership, they regrouped with terrifying speed, determined to crush Earth once and for all. Back on the planet, celebrations quickly gave way to grim resolve. The victory over the Oblivion had been monumental, but everyone knew it came at a cost. The Krylos still outnumbered humanity's forces, and their remaining ships bristled with weapons capable of obliterating entire cities. Worse yet, their desperation made them reckless. Knowing they had nothing left to lose, the invaders launched a final, all-out assault on Earth. A brutal campaign designed to break humanity's spirit once and for all. Cities burned as beams of energy rained down from the sky, reducing buildings to rubble and turning streets into infernos. Civilians fled in panic, seeking refuge in underground shelters or fleeing to rural areas. Hospitals overflowed with the wounded, and supply lines struggled to keep up with demand. It was clear that the Krylos intended to make this last stand as devastating as possible, leaving no corner of Earth untouched by their wrath. Rachel Bennett stood at the forefront of humanity's defense, leading her squadron into battle after battle. Her pilots fought valiantly, pushing themselves to their limits, but the sheer scale of the Krylos assault tested even their endurance. Ships were lost, pilots went missing, and every victory felt smaller than the last. Exhaustion weighed heavily on Rachel's shoulders, but she refused to let it show. Her team looked to her for strength, and she wasn't about to let them down. In the midst of the carnage, Alex Carter and Emma Lewis worked tirelessly to find new ways to counter the Krylos' relentless attacks. Using data from the destroyed flagship, they identified weaknesses in the aliens' secondary command structures. Many of the remaining ships relied on outdated communication protocols, making them vulnerable to cyber attacks. Liam Brooks seized on this opportunity, deploying more advanced viruses to disrupt enemy coordination and sow confusion among their ranks. But technology alone couldn't stop the onslaught. Humanity needed something more, something that would inspire courage in the face of overwhelming odds. That's when Alex proposed an audacious plan: broadcast a message directly to the Krylos fleet. The idea was risky. Any attempt to communicate with the invaders could give away valuable intelligence. Yet Alex believed it might also plant seeds of doubt within their ranks. If the Krylos saw how fiercely humanity was fighting, and how much they had adapted to alien technology, they might reconsider their chances of victory. With Rachel's support, Alex and Emma prepared the transmission. They gathered footage of Earth's defenses in action: fighters weaving through space, scientists working around the clock, civilians volunteering to help the war effort. The message ended with a simple declaration: "We are stronger together. Leave now or face extinction." When the broadcast went live, it reached every ship in the Krylos fleet. At first, there was silence, a tense, eerie quiet that stretched across the battlefield. Then, slowly, the invaders began to respond. Some ships broke formation, retreating to safer distances, while others hesitated mid-attack. Though the majority continued their assault, cracks began to form in their unity. Pilots questioned orders, commanders argued tactics, and morale plummeted. Rachel seized the moment. With the Krylos fleet partially disorganized, she led a daring raid on one of their largest carriers, a floating fortress packed with supplies and reinforcements. Flying alongside Sarah Myers and Daniel Holt, she navigated treacherous asteroid fields and dodged enemy fire to reach the carrier's hull. Once inside, the team planted explosives in key locations, targeting fuel reserves and weapon caches. As they escaped, the carrier erupted in a massive explosion, sending debris hurtling into nearby ships and causing further disarray. The success of the raid boosted humanity's spirits, proving that even in the darkest moments, hope remained alive. People rallied behind Rachel and her squadron, inspired by their bravery and determination. Volunteers poured into recruitment centers, eager to join the fight. Engineers worked double shifts to repair damaged fighters and build new ones. Artists painted murals of Rachel leading her team into battle, while musicians composed songs celebrating their heroism. Yet, despite these victories, the cost of the war grew heavier with each passing day. Casualties mounted and resources dwindled. Food shortages became common and hospitals struggled to treat the wounded. Families mourned loved ones lost in battle. their grief tempered only by the knowledge that their sacrifices had helped protect others. Rachel carried the weight of those losses with her every time she took to the skies, her heart breaking a little more with each name added to the list of fallen heroes. General Harold Monroe, sidelined but still watching from the sidelines, finally understood the gravity of what Rachel and her allies were doing. Though he had once dismissed their guerrilla tactics as cowardly, he now saw them for what they truly were: acts of courage and sacrifice. In a rare moment of humility, he approached Rachel after a particularly grueling mission. "I was wrong," he admitted, his voice low and sincere. "You've done what I couldn't, brought people together. This planet owes you everything." Rachel nodded, accepting his apology without saying a word. There was no time for bitterness or blame, not when the war was still raging. Instead, she focused on the task ahead, knowing that every second counted. As the days turned into weeks, humanity's resistance grew fiercer. Civilians joined the fight in unexpected ways, using whatever tools they had to defend their homes. Farmers used tractors to block roads and slow down ground invasions. Teachers organized supply drives, ensuring soldiers had food and medical care. Even children contributed, creating camouflage nets and delivering messages between bases. Together they formed an unbreakable wall of defiance, united by a shared belief in Earth's future. Finally, the moment came when the Krylos realized they could not win. Their fleet was battered, their resources depleted, and their resolve shattered. What had started as a campaign of domination had become a fight for survival, and they were losing. One by one, ships began to retreat, pulling back from Earth's orbit and disappearing into the depths of space. Vorthak's empire, once feared, across the galaxy had been humbled by a tiny blue planet and its resilient inhabitants. Humanity had proven itself stronger than anyone, including the Krylos, had ever imagined. Rachel watched as the last of the alien ships vanished from view, her hands gripping the controls of her fighter tightly. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. She knew the road to recovery would be long and difficult, but for the first time in months, she allowed herself to feel a glimmer of peace. The war was over. Earth had won. And though the scars would remain for generations, so too would the lessons learned. That courage could overcome fear, that unity could triumph over division, and that even the smallest spark of hope could ignite a fire strong enough to drive away the darkness. Part 8. The Krylos were gone, their ships vanishing into the vastness of space like shadows retreating from the light. For the first time in months, Earth's skies were clear, and the sun shone brightly without the looming threat of alien destruction. But the cost of victory was etched deeply into the planet's landscape and its people. Cities lay in ruins, their once bustling streets now silent except for the hum of rebuilding efforts. Hospitals overflowed with the injured, and memorials began to appear in parks and town squares, honoring those who had given their lives to protect humanity. Rachel Bennett stood at one such memorial, her hands resting gently on the cold stone surface. Names were carved into the slab, hundreds of them, each representing a life lost in the war. Some belonged to pilots she had flown alongside, others to civilians who had sacrificed everything to aid the resistance. As she read each name, Rachel felt a mix of pride and sorrow. These individuals had made it possible for Earth to survive, but their absence left an emptiness that could never be filled. Behind her, Alex Carter and Emma Lewis approached quietly. They carried blueprints and datapads, their minds already focused on the future. "We need to talk about what comes next," Alex said softly, breaking the silence. His voice was calm, but tinged with urgency. The war might have ended, but the work was far from over. Emma nodded in agreement. "We've learned so much from the Krylos' technology," she added. "If we can harness it properly, we can rebuild stronger than before. Maybe even explore the stars ourselves." Rachel turned to face them, her expression thoughtful. The idea of venturing beyond Earth's atmosphere had always been a dream, but now it felt different, like a responsibility. If humanity was going to prevent another invasion, They needed to understand the universe around them. "It's not just about rebuilding," Rachel said finally. "It's about preparing. We can't let this happen again." With that goal in mind, the trio threw themselves into the task of recovery and innovation. Engineers and scientists worked side by side, studying fragments of Krylos technology to unlock its secrets. Crystalline energy cores, once weapons of destruction, became tools for progress. Power grids were upgraded, allowing cities to function more efficiently. Medical researchers developed new treatments using insights gained from alien biology, saving countless lives that would have otherwise been lost. Liam Brooks played a crucial role in this effort, his expertise in cyber warfare proving invaluable as humanity adapted to interstellar challenges. He created advanced AI systems capable of analyzing vast amounts of data, helping predict potential threats and streamline resource distribution. These innovations not only aided in reconstruction, but also laid the groundwork for Earth's first steps toward becoming a spacefaring civilization. Meanwhile, Rachel focused on training a new generation of pilots. The Skyward Squadron had suffered heavy losses during the war, and replenishing its ranks was essential if humanity hoped to defend itself against future dangers. She pushed her recruits hard, teaching them the skills needed to navigate both Earth's atmosphere and the vast unknowns of space. Yet she also emphasized teamwork and compassion, reminding them that bravery wasn't just about fighting, it was about protecting others. As weeks turned into months, signs of renewal began to emerge. Fields once scorched by alien attacks bloomed, with crops thanks to farmers working tirelessly to restore the land. Schools reopened, their classrooms filled with laughter and curiosity. Artists painted murals depicting Earth's resilience, while musicians composed songs celebrating unity and hope. Slowly but surely, life returned to normal, or at least, a new kind of normal shaped by the lessons of the war. Yet, despite the progress, questions lingered. What had become of the Krylos? Had they truly abandoned their campaign, or were they regrouping somewhere in the galaxy, plotting revenge? And what about Vorthak? Was he dead, or had he escaped to rally his forces for another assault? These uncertainties weighed heavily on Rachel, Alex, and Emma, driving them to push harder than ever before. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the three of them gathered on the rooftop of GDI headquarters. Below them, the city buzzed with activity. Construction crews hammering away, families enjoying meals together, children playing in the streets. Above them, the stars twinkled faintly, reminders of the infinite possibilities waiting beyond Earth's borders. "We've come so far," Alex said, breaking the comfortable silence. "But we're still just scratching the surface." Emma smiled, her eyes reflecting the fading light. "That's the exciting part, isn't it? There's so much more to discover." Rachel nodded, her gaze fixed on the heavens. "And we'll do it together," she said firmly. "No matter what's out there, we'll face it as one." Their determination was shared by millions around the world. Humanity had stared into the abyss and refused to blink. They had faced an enemy capable of obliterating entire civilizations and emerged victorious, not through brute strength but through ingenuity, courage, and unity. It was a lesson they vowed never to forget. In the years that followed, Earth transformed. New technologies allowed humans to travel farther and faster than ever before, opening doors to exploration and diplomacy. Colonies sprang up on nearby planets, serving as outposts for scientific research and defense. Diplomatic envoys reached out to other species, seeking alliances and fostering understanding. Humanity was no longer alone in the cosmos, but neither was it afraid. The Krylos had terrorized the galaxy, leaving behind a trail of fear and devastation. But Earth had proven that even the smallest planet could stand tall when united. Its people had shown that strength wasn't measured by power or size, it was measured by heart. And as long as that heart continued to beat, humanity would endure. Rachel often found herself thinking about the sacrifices made during the war. She visited the memorials regularly, paying her respects to those who had given everything so others could live free. Each time, she whispered the same promise. We won't. Waste what you gave us. Your fight will never be forgotten. And it wasn't. Generations later, stories of the Krylos invasion and humanity's triumph remained alive in books, films, and oral histories. Children dreamed of flying among the stars, inspired by tales of bravery and resilience. Scientists, built upon the foundations laid by Alex and Emma, pushing the boundaries of knowledge further every day. Leaders guided nations with wisdom born of hardship, ensuring that peace endured. Earth had changed forever because of the war, but it had changed for the better. Out of chaos came growth, out of loss came strength, and out of fear came hope. The Krylos might have sought to destroy humanity, but instead they had forged it into something greater. As Rachel looked up at the night sky one last time, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. The road ahead was uncertain, full of challenges yet unseen. But she knew one thing for sure. Humanity was ready. Together, they had faced the darkness and driven it away. And together, they would continue to shine, a beacon of courage and unity in a vast, mysterious universe.